Have you ever looked at an old photo and felt like you were staring at a stranger? That smile, it's yours. But those eyes, different, softer, maybe more naive. You can almost hear the silence between those frozen moments, the effortless laughter, the unshaken confidence. And then, a whisper inside you says, I'm not that person anymore. Change isn't the grand fireworks show we expect. It doesn't roar in like a storm, or flood in like a tidal wave. Instead, it sneaks in, quiet as a whisper, between your breaths, in the pauses you barely notice. It's the moment you stop chasing approval, the instant your silence starts to mean peace, not defeat. Transformation is slow, patient, invisible to the eye, like waves eroding ashore, shaping you, bit by bit. You'll notice subtle signs. Old songs stop moving you. Jokes don't land the same way. Suddenly, solitude feels sacred, not lonely. The world hasn't changed, you have. Was it heartbreak, betrayal, or that one quiet night when you finally told yourself the truth? Psychologists call it ego death, the dismantling of who you thought you were. Neuroscientists talk about new neural pathways firing. Spiritually, it's both burial and rebirth. Here's the catch. Change isn't just about gaining new strength or wisdom. Sometimes it takes away everything familiar. It strips away your masks until you're naked in front of yourself, raw and exposed. And that's terrifying, but also liberating. Think back. Were you once that child who learned love had to be earned, who smoothed down rough edges just to stay safe? You built a mask, a survival tool shaped by approval and fear. That mask followed you into adulthood, becoming your second skin. Psychologists call it the false self, but it's not a weakness, it's survival. And then comes the breaking point, when exhaustion outweighs approval, when silence is unbearable, when the mask suffocates instead of protects. That's when transformation begins. Not with a bang, but with a crack. Your true self never left. It was waiting for permission to live again. So ask yourself, who must you become now to be free? Because life isn't about pretending anymore. It's about facing your own truth. The messy, beautiful, terrifying truth beneath the mask. Adulthood isn't freedom. It's a bigger stage where you play roles just as carefully as you did as a kid. But now those roles can stifle instead of protect. Whether you're the achiever, caretaker, or stoic, your mask becomes your identity until you forget who you were without it. Carl Jung called this the persona, the face we show to survive the world's rules. It's necessary but dangerous if mistaken for our true self, because living behind a mask, it's not living at all, it's performing, and masks get heavy. What once was armor turns into a cage. You start craving not applause but understanding, not admiration but real connection. You catch glimpses of your true self in moments of heartbreak or solitude, those cracks in your armor where authenticity peeks through. Transformation begins when you stop polishing your disguise and start facing what lies underneath. Science calls it neuroplasticity, your brain rewiring itself with every choice you make to change old habits. Your brain can learn freedom just like it learned fear. Every time you pause before reacting or question an old belief, you build new pathways. Change starts not with motivation, but with awareness, the tiny space between stimulus and response where your power lives. But science alone can't capture the ache of transformation. Carl Jung said real change demands facing what we've repressed, the buried emotions holding the keys to healing. When you process these feelings instead of avoiding them, your nervous system calms, your mind trusts again, and transformation deepens from surface to soul. There will be a moment, a quiet collapse when everything you were begins to fall apart. The old you no longer fits. Familiar relationships feel distant. Even your reflection seems ghostly. This is the dark night of the soul, not depression, but spiritual undoing, a dismantling so something new can rise. Neuroscience calls this neural pruning, old connections dissolving to make room for new ones. What feels like loss is actually creation in disguise. Imagine winter soil beneath barren branches, the roots rearranging unseen, preparing for spring. You might feel like disappearing, and in many ways you are. The self built on fear and control is dissolving. That hurts deeply, because losing what once defined you feels like losing home. But maybe that pain isn't failure. It's growth breaking free from its cage. Society applauds consistency but fears change. It wants you predictable and safe, not evolving beyond its comfort zone. When you start transforming, others may pull away. They fear being reflected back their own stagnation. But transformation isn't rebellion, it's survival. And survival can be lonely. You might mourn as you shed old identities, feel isolated even among familiar faces. That grief is called identity loss, the emotional cost of outgrowing your past self before the world catches up. Transformation means stepping away from comfort zones, even from people who loved only your mask. It means walking alone through silence until a faint pulse of authenticity breaks through. Eventually, something shifts. The storm doesn't weaken. You learn to stand in it without breaking. Silence turns sacred. Loneliness becomes space for growth. You realize transformation isn't erasing your past, but reclaiming what was buried beneath it. Rebuilding begins, not outside, but inside, with small choices repeated until strength returns. Boundaries become lines of respect drawn in your soul's soil. You meet your shadow, anger, fear, desire, and stop fighting them because they're messengers, not enemies. This is integration, uniting conscious and unconscious parts of yourself. Healing comes when you stop resisting darkness and learn its language. Each time you face pain with awareness instead of avoidance, your brain rewires toward resilience and compassion. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about walking with fear and moving forward anyway. Brick by brick, breath by breath, you rebuild a new self, rooted enough to bend without breaking. You forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. And here's the most beautiful truth. You were never broken, only rearranged. Transformation isn't making something new. It's remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. Look again at that old photo. The eyes aren't strangers anymore. They're gentle, forgiving, becoming. Every heartbreaking collapse wasn't an ending. It was necessary dismantling because life moves in cycles of death and rebirth. Change is raw and violent, the sacred destruction that makes room for new light. Like stars collapsing into brilliance, forests burning for new roots, hearts breaking to reveal love, not found but revealed. The chaos inside wasn't your enemy. It was fire, preparing you for flight. Like the phoenix rising from ashes, not despite them, but because of them, you become whole by embracing every part of yourself, the pain, the shadow, and the light. With this awareness comes freedom. You stop fearing collapse, because decay is not death. It's soil for rebirth. Pain shifts from punishment into purification. Endings shimmer with promise. You stop running from ruins and start building temples out of them. You forgive past versions of yourself, because they paved the way for this one to live fully. The cracks weren't flaws. They were doorways leading here to this moment where everything aligns. You were never meant to stay the same. You were meant to evolve, to fall apart and rise again, until every part of you remembers its place in the whole. I feel this is the phoenix within, burning bright again and again, not to become someone new, but to remember, even in ashes, you were always the fire.